It's Wednesday in Simpsonville, South Carolina, and I want to talk to you about marriage. As we approach Valentine's Day, it seems that there's a lot of advertisements for candy and for flowers and for dinners out and all of those things that go along with Valentine's Day. But let me just tell you about a pastor who was getting ready to preach a series on the family. He would start at Valentine's Day, and he would go through Mother's Day and then through Father's Day and deal with the entire family. But this particular pastor knew it was always difficult to get people back Sunday after Sunday, so he said, next Sunday I'm going to reveal the name of the woman, another man's wife, whom I kissed. And he says, I just think all of you should be here when I reveal the name of that other man's wife that I kissed. So sure enough, the house was packed the following Sunday, figuring this was going to be confession time. Another pastor had bit the dust. But he revealed that the name of the woman of the other man's wife that he kissed was his mother. It was his father's wife, and so it was another man's wife. Pre-marriage agreements, prenups. A lot of people are talking about those today. I heard briefly from the other room a TV program that was talking about prenuptial agreements, and would you be offended by somebody asking you to sign a prenup? And I submit to you that as Christians we ought to have a prenup. Oh, not the kind that defines how the properties and division of ownership of material things are going to be divided. Sometimes that's wise, especially in second marriages, but I want to talk to you about a prenup for just every marriage. You see, the first thing you need to think about is, what did you want from marriage? What do you want from marriage if you're not yet married? Is it companionship? Children? Sex? Security? Love? What is it that you're looking for from marriage? All of the above? Companionship, children, sex, security, love? Well, Genesis 2:18 says that God had a plan. And when he looked at the creation that he had made, he said it was not good for man to be alone, and he would make a helper suitable for him. And in verse 24 it goes on and says that man shall leave his father and mother and cleave to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. Now, usually the way I illustrate that from the pulpit is to take my hand and say, here's a man and here is a woman, and the two become one flesh. If I hold on to this grip that I have with the interlocking fingers and you try to pull it apart, it hurts. It hurts when you try to pull it apart. And the harder you pull, the more it hurts. Many times when I see couples that have been married 50, 60 years and one passes on, I recognize that it hurts because you're ripping away part of that flesh, that one flesh that God has created. It says that God brought the woman to man. It was his plan for one man, one woman, not Adam and Steve, not polygamy with multiple wives, but one man, one woman, and that they should have such a relationship that they would leave their fathers and mothers and cleave to each other. Now let me tell you the 5 elements that I believe make a great marriage. The first one is that they both have the attitude that they'll seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, that God will be number one in their life. Matthew 6:33. And it's not 50-50. That's what happens in most states in divorce. 50% goes to her and 50% goes to him. There's really 100-100. As a matter of fact, Ephesians 5:21 says that they're to be subject to one another in the fear of Christ. So we see to seek first the kingdom of God. It's 100-100 is number 2. Number 3 is that they would seek to give all of their love and all of their attention after God to their mate. We see that can't be selfish. It can't be one-sided. It's got to be your mate is your second priority in your life, right after God. And we see that Abraham made a terrible mistake in the Old Testament when he made an offer basically in Egypt to say, you can take my wife because she's my sister. He claimed that Sarah was his sister because he was afraid they were going to kill him so they could have his pretty wife. Now, that's pretty selfish on his part, that he'd be willing to allow her to be sacrificed in that way just so he'd save his own skin. Fourth, we're to love each other as Christ loved the church. Now I realize that in the book of Ephesians, in chapter 5, verse 25, it says, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church. But it also says that women are to be subject to their husbands as unto Christ. And so here again, this love is a sacrificial, putting the other person first kind of love. And finally, number 5, the agreement that they should have is to join together to glorify God, to serve Him. You see, if you had that kind of prenup, to seek first the kingdom of God, to give 100% being subject to Christ, loving your mate second only to God, and loving each other as Christ loved the church, or to be subject to God, or subject to your husband as unto God, and with an agreement that you're joining together for the purpose of glorifying God together as a team. If you had that kind of prenup, just 5 items, you'd find the companionship. You'd probably be blessed with children. Your sex would be probably better than most. Your security would be absolute by having faith and trust in God. And the love would not only be the love for each other, but it'd be the love of God who would encompass you both in His arms. It's a beautiful picture of marriage, and it was a wonderful prenup agreement. That's your thought for the day. God bless you and have a great day.